morning, everyone. We are together today on Staten Island, a borough that is too often forgotten by those in power. And we are standing on the site of Hillside Grove, a sanitation garage in the process of being reborn as more than 200 units of affordable housing. The ground we stand on is a physical testament to government's power to transform the lives of those it serves when it dares to tackle challenges with ambition, imagination, and competence. That power does not arrive automatically. It is the product of sweeping visions of what government can be, driven by leaders who make decisions governed by a love of every person who calls this city home, no matter how much they earn or how much influence they carry. As I continue to build out my administration and appoint senior-level positions, those are the leaders I am seeking to elevate. The approach to governance that I want to define City Hall. Our administration will remember New Yorkers that have otherwise been forgotten. It will solve issues that have otherwise been forgotten. And so today, I'm so proud to appoint 2 deputy mayors who will not only work to deliver the affordability agenda that resonated with so many New Yorkers, but will lead the implementation of that new, more expansive approach to governance. First, I'm delighted to announce Leila Bozorg as my deputy mayor for housing. When most New Yorkers think about what causes them the most anxiety, what chips away most at their savings, what makes life in our city feel most impossible, housing is so often the answer. We don't have enough of it, and what we do have costs far too much. In Leila, New Yorkers will be able to place their trust in a public servant with a proven record of achievement, who has confronted the housing crisis with the urgency it demands. She boasts 15 years of shaping housing policy at senior levels of both city and federal government. She currently serves as New York Executive Director for Housing, where she directs the $25 billion housing capital budget and oversees housing and land use strategies across HPD, HDC, NYCHA, HRO, and DCP. More important than her resume, though, is who she has fought for. Since she assumed her role nearly 2 years ago, she has worked on behalf of tenants, low-income families too often left behind, public housing development so frequently deemed secondary, and migrant communities whose welfare is often cruelly and pointedly forgotten. I am so eager to work with her to overhaul the housing landscape across our city, provide lower costs for New Yorkers, and make the city somewhere that many are able to call home again. In this work, she will have an exemplary partner in our Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice. This is a new position with a vast remit to tackle the inequality that too often permeates across our city, to go after unfair labor practices and corporate abuses, and above all, to build a city that puts workers and consumers before profit. This is a powerful role, and it demands a leader who has extensive experience fighting and winning on the largest stages. That is why I am thrilled to announce that Julie Su will serve as New York's inaugural Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice. Julie served as President Biden's acting Secretary of Labor until this January and was Deputy Secretary of Labor before that. Her history of fighting for working people is well known to anyone in labor. As California Labor Commissioner, she took on wage theft and those who sought to exploit immigrant workers, work she only deepened in our nation's capital. Her work as a public servant is built atop her long legacy of tireless advocacy on behalf of those subjected to unimaginable exploitation. When she fought for Thai workers held in inhumane conditions in a makeshift garment factory in El Monte, California, she wasn't just defending the vulnerable, she was championing the otherwise forgotten. I turn to her to continue this work as she oversees the Taxi and Limousine Commission, Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, the Commission on Human Rights, Small Business Services, and several other agencies that will focus on New Yorkers' everyday economic realities. And I will ask her, as well as Deputy Mayor Bozorg, to lead with a compassion that too few working people expect from their leaders, a creativity that too few New Yorkers expect from public service, and a boldness that is too rare. Together, I am eager to measure our success by one simple metric: how many forgotten New Yorkers feel themselves now represented in City Hall? And how many people across this city feel their lives measurably improved by those fortunate enough to serve? Thank you so much, and we will now hear from our new Deputy Mayor for Housing.
Thank you, Mayor-elect. Good morning. I'm incredibly honored to have the opportunity to continue to serve the people of New York in this new role, and to join an administration with a remarkable clarity of purpose. Like so many New Yorkers, I watched over the past year as Mayor-elect Mamdani shared his vision for a more equitable, affordable New York. And like so many New Yorkers, his message really spoke to me, and it spoke directly to the work I care so deeply about and have been doing for 2 decades. When New Yorkers hear the word affordability, I know it means something different to each person. For some, it speaks to high medical bills. For others, grocery costs. And for many young families, it's a reminder of the exorbitant cost of childcare. And yet, I know that for most, for so many, the cost of housing is the #1 issue that comes to mind. When you can't afford a home, so many of our neighbors cannot, you can't fathom a life of dignity and security. Everything depends on stable housing. For the last 20 years, I have dedicated my career to rewriting that equation, to expanding our supply of mixed income, affordable, and public housing, building and preserving housing, affordable housing across our city, and standing up for affordable housing tenants. Every day that I have gone to work, whether it was at the Department of Housing and Urban Development under President Obama, the city's Department of Housing Preservation and Development, or more recently as the Executive Director for Housing in City Hall, I've been driven by a singular mission of making housing something that improves people's lives rather than something that causes them anguish and distress. We face immense challenges before us, but every challenge is an opportunity. There are hundreds of thousands of homes that we can be building. Look no further than the site we're in today. It's proof. We can turn city-owned sites into deeply affordable housing. We can get creative and innovative. This site is ready for massive infrastructure and housing investments, and we're going to turn it into homes for hundreds of New Yorkers with various needs. For seniors, those ready for home ownership, those coming out of the shelters, and those with low and extremely low incomes. I, like our mayor-elect, relish the chance to prove that we can do much more of this, and that what so many deem impossible is indeed very possible. In Mayor-elect Mamdani, I see a bold leader with a comprehensive vision to transform the landscape of housing across New York that we need to deliver to truly achieve truly lasting and meaningful change. I'm humbled by the trust you put in me to assume this role and to fulfill its awesome responsibilities, and I look forward to continuing to serve the city that I love and the millions who call it home. Finally, I'm proud to join a team that leads with drive and determination and works tirelessly to include every New Yorker in this equation and everyone who deserves dignity and power, including my new colleague, Julie. Because people's ability to find and keep housing has much more to do than with just the housing. It's also about their ability to find and keep good jobs and dignified work so that they can pay their rent and mortgages. I'm grateful to every person that has helped me get to this point. I want to mention a couple mentors, Maria Torres Springer, Alicia Glenn, Vicky Bean, Eric Enderlin. I want to thank my parents who were not able to be here today, but whose personal sacrifices in coming to this country 44 years ago gave me and my siblings a chance to be who we are and to live out our own dreams. And I want to thank my wife, Molly, who supports me in my ability to show up as the best version of myself every day. Most of all, I want to thank the people of New York for placing their trust in me. I will get to work, and I will work to fulfill that trust every single day. Thank you.
Now, our Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice, Julie Su.
Thank you so much, Mayor-elect, for this extraordinary honor and for the opportunity to serve. The very creation of this role, a Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice, speaks volumes about this administration's vision, innovation, and priorities. It reflects a clear understanding that economic justice, not just economic growth or economic strength, but justice matters. And it is not a side issue, but a core responsibility of city government. And this focus could not come at a more critical moment. Working people across the 5 boroughs and across our nation are being crushed by a cost of living crisis. They are laboring under unfair conditions, watching their pay stagnate, and living with the daily reality of widening inequality. Even as New York's economy has recovered from the depths of the pandemic, that recovery has not been widely shared. Wage growth for the highest earners has outpaced that of the lowest paid workers by 3 to 1. Half of working age New Yorkers struggle to afford their basic needs. And 1 in 4 lives in poverty, double the national rate. Mayor-elect Mamdani ran a transformative campaign focused on affordability, and I'm honored to help him deliver on that promise. That means a relentless focus on lowering the costs that are pushing so many families into poverty and so many out of the city that they love. But affordability is not just about bringing down costs, it's also about bringing up wages. That's why we have to make sure that jobs pay enough, that every worker gets a just day's pay for a hard day's work, and workers can organize and bargain collectively for their rights on the job. As the mayor-elect constantly reminds us, in the battle against inequality, one of our strongest tools is union density. I know that truth personally. When my parents first immigrated to the United States, they worked minimum wage jobs until my mom was hired by Los Angeles County. That's a unionized job, and it changed our lives. It allowed her to be home by 5:30. It let us go to the doctor when we were sick, and now that she's retired, she has a pension. And it brought stability, dignity, and the breathing room to dream. So it made the American dream more tangible for my family, and it put me on a path to law school. The power of a good job and the responsibility of government to guarantee basic standards of dignity and respect has guided my entire career. It drove my work as I fought for corporate accountability against those who exploited workers, and it shaped my tenure as California Labor Commissioner when we took on wage theft and stood up for immigrant workers. And it informed my work as acting U.S. Labor Secretary, where we worked to build power for workers across the entire country. So these are the experiences and the perspectives that I will bring to this role. And here is the promise that I believe local government can make and must keep. That in the richest city, in the richest country in the world, no one should be treated as disposable. That dignity on the job is not a privilege, but a right. That justice is not abstract, but it's felt in a paycheck that you can live on a schedule that you can build your life around, a workplace where your voice matters, and a city that has your back. Local government is where ideas become real. It is where policy meets people's lives. And under the Mamdani administration, New York City will once again show what it looks like when government chooses workers, when it delivers not just growth, but fairness, not just opportunity, but security, not just prosperity for some, but dignity and justice for all. I'm so grateful for this privilege to serve alongside amazing colleagues and under this history-making mayor-elect to deliver on this vision.
Could you say the second half of that one more time? Our administration will operate under a standard of excellence. And setting that standard is not only about fulfilling it, it's also about holding yourself accountable when you are not doing so. And we are currently underway at making changes in our vetting process. I have full confidence in the two deputy mayors that I'm standing alongside today, and in the decisions we've made thus far, and the ones that we will be making shortly. There are clear changes that need to be made, and that's exactly what we're doing right now.
Mayor Adams just reappointed some members to the Rent Guidelines Board along with the members. How does this impact your affordability agenda as well as within the rent for next year?
I remain just as committed to delivering a 4-year rent freeze for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants across the city, and there's no number of late appointments that will change that.
Katie, go ahead.
This question, I guess, is Mayor-elect Deputy Mayor from Economic Justice. Can you speak in more maybe layman's
Sorry,
terms
Katie, if you could go even louder. Yeah.
for the general public in
Thank you.
layman's terms? How do you describe the day-to-day of a deputy mayor for economic justice? Will be going over policies and agencies? Will there be a particular focus you're looking at, whether it's housing or wages? You want to explain a little bit about how you envision that job?
Absolutely. Thank you. This is a job whose portfolio will bring together a number of agencies where workers' rights are to be protected, but so often are not. We're speaking about the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. We're speaking about the Taxi and Limousine Commission. We're speaking about the Department of Cultural Affairs, right? We're speaking across the board, and I'll give you one example. Just the other day, the City Council passed legislation that would protect for-hire drivers from the threat of unfair deactivation. To actually fulfill that legislation will require a DCWP that is committed to doing the enforcement work and a deputy mayor for economic justice that actually brings that to the finish line. That's one example of what our deputy mayor will be focusing on.
Sure, and just to pick up on what the mayor-elect just said, laws are only as good as their enforcement, right? Otherwise, they're words on paper. And so part of the job will be to breathe life into the protections that workers enjoy out of respect to the city council who's passed them, but also to fulfill the vision of this mayor-elect. But also, I think the bringing together these issues demonstrates that in order to deliver real economic justice, especially for those who've been left behind in the past, we have to think about it as a more holistic approach. We have to infuse it into everything that we do in government. And I think the other thing I'll say is that, you know, because the cultural affairs work is also now under this, to me this is about recognizing that for working people in this city, they shouldn't just be able to afford the basics. They should get to enjoy the things that make New York beautiful and lovely and fun. And so we're going to be working on looking at economic justice very broadly as a quality of life issue
And just
for
as
New
a
Yorkers.
follow-up, will you also look at some city policies? I'm thinking immediately of the pay disparity between EMS and the fire department. Your union has been pushing for higher pay. Do you look at something like that in terms of economic justice?
It's going to be a focus external and internal. And I think just one thing before we get to Jeff is that I think the World Cup is also an example of this. The World Cup czar will be reporting to the deputy mayor for economic justice. That speaks to a vision of an event that could otherwise simply be considered a sporting event or a tourism event, but also an event that will ensure it is deeply connected to the lives of working people across the city. No on both. No on both. I was not aware of these posts, and I would not have hired had I been aware. I can say that in looking at our deputy mayor's record and in looking at how she stood up for workers across the country, it is a moment of incredible excitement for myself and for the entire team to have her in leading this work.
Were you aware of that
I'm aware of the deputy mayor's record, and I'm very excited to have her on board.
Yes, we'll go right here.
Hi, Mamdani. The ages-old complaint about Staten Island being the forgotten borough. We heard from the borough president this week about the secession possibility. I'm just wondering, is this, should he be concerned about Staten Island's standing in your administration? And are they justified in thinking that they'll be ignored here?
I understand why many Staten Islanders would be concerned about that given their experience under a number of different mayoral administrations. And I look to Staten Island as not an obligation but an opportunity. Staten Island is the borough with the highest amount of union density in all of New York City. It is the borough where, for many New Yorkers, it is the only place they can even conceive of becoming a homeowner. And it is also a borough where too often it feels that the further away you are geographically from City Hall, the less that you were thought about. And when I've spoken about the necessity of taking on property tax reform, when I've spoken about the necessity of making buses fast and free, I am also thinking specifically about Staten Island. And we had a 12-hour listening session just last weekend at the Museum of the Moving Image in Astoria. There were a number of Staten Islanders who spent 2.5 hours just to come to that museum. And one of them shared with me that when we had made the S46 free through our Fare Free bus pilot, that it transformed her life and her ability to see those that she loved and her ability to explore the borough that she called home, and how she wants to see that kind of a commitment borne out in every single bus line that she could be taking. And I really do appreciate Staten Islanders, not least because my Director of Office of Management and Budget, Sharif Suleiman, has spent more than 25 years living here on Staten Island after having moved here from Homenack Houses in Queens.
Sorry, I don't want to get into the vetting process. I'd like to ask you a broader question about the Jewish community. During the campaign, when asked whether you would protect the Jewish community, you said that you would protect the Jewish community as you would every community in the same. This week, in response to the massacre in Australia, there was no similar equivocation. You right out and said, I am there, I work every day with the Jewish people, safe on our streets, on subways, every moment of every day. I'm wondering if your position on this has evolved. Perhaps it may have to run New York, or consider it as Jewish New York. How's your position on this evolved?
It's the same position, which is a commitment to keeping Jewish New Yorkers safe, and a commitment also to asking more of ourselves than simply protecting Jewish New Yorkers, but also celebrating and cherishing Jewish New Yorkers. And I know that, for example, when we speak of the horrific anti-Semitic terror attack in Australia, this is something that many New Yorkers are intimately tied to. I spoke to a New Yorker just a few days ago who told me of 2 of his family members who were killed in that. And the deep ties, the deep connection, and a real sense of fear that many Jewish New Yorkers have is one that city government needs to address head on. And that is what we will do when we leave the city. And that's what I've also been thankful for, is being in constant communication with Commissioner Tisch about the steps that we are taking in the immediate and the medium and long term to ensure that we deliver that safety. And I know that I share these words during the holiday of Hanukkah, a holiday that celebrates light, joy, the enduring power of resilience. And it has been very difficult for Jewish New Yorkers to celebrate this holiday in that same manner. There is a feeling of a diminished sense of light, of maybe even a danger in doing so. And what I have found inspiration in is the story of the Maccabees themselves, and the importance of understanding that impossibility is something that you can in fact confront, you can in fact tackle. And my hope is that in leading this city, that it will be a city where Jewish New Yorkers are not only safe to leave their homes and go to work and to spend their lives as they would like to, but also in celebrating their own faith and in lighting their menorah and in knowing that this is a city that cherishes them and they're being a part of it. How's it going?
Do any of you have
I will ask my deputy mayor for housing of many things, but I will also be fair and ask her of those things from January 1st when she continues to do this work, but in a new position. I will tell you, however, that the concern that many New Yorkers have, whether about the timeline of this project or frankly the timeline of work across city government, is one that is of deep importance to me. And so we have spoken about, whether in our interview process or in our own internal discussions of the way we will set up city government, of how we have to tackle not only the delivery of more than 200 units of affordable housing here, but also the fulfillment of the commitment to have a grocery store at the same site, to ensure that we are also taking on the issue of procurement of capital projects. It was maybe about a couple weeks ago where I met with representatives of CIGs across New York City at the Museum of the Moving Image, including representatives of a few Staten Island institutions. And the host of that event asked the crowd to put their hands up if they have been in a capital project waiting for funding for the city for a year. Almost every hand went up. For 5 years, many hands stayed up. For 10 years, some hands were still in the air. And so I think that this is a critical issue. Even when I've sat with real estate leaders, I've said we may have disagreements about labor, material, but one place of immense agreement will be that we have to eliminate the cost of waiting. We have to ensure that no longer are we putting hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, on those who want to build housing in the city because of how long a process we are creating to do so.
Two questions.
Please.
One at a time.
Thank you.
Could you ask Pat to step down? Did you volunteer to do so first?
So I made clear that these comments were reprehensible. She expressed a deep sense of remorse. She offered to resign, and I accepted it.
Would you have asked her to resign if you had?
She offered to resign, and I accepted it.
And on this announcement, the DM's housing goal sounds a little different than differential housing for economic development, or housing economic development workforce, housing planning. Do you see that working differently with the city, different agencies under that umbrella, different focus or priority under different classification?
I think the difference is exactly as you say. It will be a difference in portfolio, also a difference in focus. Frankly, the housing crisis is the most important crisis we are facing in New York City. And if I am to demand excellence from my administration, I also have to be fair in what I am demanding. And what I mean by that is I want to be able to come to my deputy mayor each and every day and ask her for an update as where we are with NYCHA, an update on where we are with building additional new housing. And in order to do so, I have to also ensure that we are taking the immense responsibility of economic development and actually tasking that with a new deputy mayor who will be focused on that, as well as with the function and the fulfillment of economic justice for workers across a wide variety of city agencies. Okay. Thank you all very much.
John, you have sweet fevers, right? Why is it fair that you have this job?